How you doing, guys? So, today in Jose's during the daily boom, uh, he pretty much played Travis's crash course on the ether band. Supposedly, now I've already this is I think maybe the third time I half-assed listened to it, right? But what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually go through it, and well, it's best if y'all just check it out.
Hello, 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 what ho?
By the way, Travis is a. I mean, you can tell in his room, he likes he likes movies, so he does a lot of kind of movie references, lines from movies, or in this case, doing a literal Muppet. Um, Now I've heard this particular. I've heard this. He played this during a debate or whatever, and his. You'll understand by the attitude in which he expresses this. It's very, he acts like it's a very rushed thing. It's very, he doesn't, like he's just putting it all together randomly, even though he says that he's been working on all day or all morning or whatever the hell he's supposed to be rushed and whatnot before work. But you hear it in his voice. He's very complainy.
What ho? Welcome back to another exciting adventure of the Plain Truth. I'm your host, Travis Finley. I just enjoy the fact that you guys are just screaming in your heads at me right now. That's just absolutely delightful. What is the ether band?
I forgot which. I honestly forget which debate this was supposed to be originally for. But yes, yeah, no one's screaming. They're all just giving exasperated, just again with the bullshit. That's basically it. But that's neither here nor there.
A tutorial.
Oh, and before we continue, obviously you're gonna find one. I'm gonna stop this a lot. But mind you, this is supposed to be a tutorial. It's a crash course on Etherband. So you would expect there to be information relevant to that. Like how can you observe this phenomena? What are the observations entail? What are the measurements involved? Like, okay, if just all the thing, stuff that would actually go, okay, this helps me. I can go out and I can film the ether band because now I know all I need to know about it, you know? And somehow or another, that doesn't really happen. He doesn't really give any quantifications as far as I remember. I could very well be wrong, but something tells me I'm not. He doesn't give any actual true information other than he just makes a lot of claims and comes to a lot of conclusions, but doesn't really give an argument. He doesn't really give any kind of justification or validation of his position. He just says, "Looky here," and there are some. We'll get to the points when they're there. I think you're funny as all hell. Not because of him saying something like a joke or anything, but just because it is intellectually hilarious to me.
There is the raw data. There is our aquatic
Wait,
horizon.
what raw?
My question to you
Wait,
is,
what raw
what
data?
cre- there is the raw data.
Okay. All right. Just this right here, this little screenshot right here, this little pause is perfect, and illustrates pretty much everything that's going to happen. His slideshow, I suppose. The raw data, his photo. Now, what's going to happen is he's going to give a lot of ad hoc rationalizations. That's basically it. Which is one of the reasons why, when Travis has been challenged to give information based on his supposed knowledge of this ether band, give information about observations that are not his own. To basically, he's allowed. People give him leeway to make as many ad hoc rationalizations as he can he can probably fit into to as many breaths as he can take. But he's almost like if someone else is asking him about it, then he typically doesn't actually engage at all. He won't go over um, any of it. He won't talk about it. He won't even give any. He won't use his accumulated expertise and apply it that way. Now, however, on his own channel, to which you can go and look, he does sit there and start. He will actually do that to a certain degree. It's a lot of it could be this, it could be that. You know, it's never. He tries to dismantle things in a what if fashion. What if this, what if that, could be this, could be that, might be this, might be that. Woulda, coulda, shouldas, basically. Uh, and you can see it on his channels. He uses the why can't somebody or other do something or other BS, but that's the only time he does it is on his turf.
There is our aqua.
By the way, I thought it was really funny when he called the blank picture without the words raw data. Technically, not raw data, but whatever.
Aquatic horizon. My question to you is, what creates this aquatic horizon? Why can't we see more water in the distance?
Um, a simplest explanation, and the more kind of obvious, is that you have a landmass. So you can't keep seeing water to pass the landmass because it's sort of in the way. But if you notice, he chose a very dark image. The contrast, uh, you can see the contrast. I mean, whether or not that's actually been played up, if not, it's a really nice picture. But it also offers virtually no information other than to help his some make it, he's trying to make assumptions based off of that. And given that I see he's got a whole bunch of writing on other slides, he's just basically gonna make some shit up, and he expects you to kind of buy into it. Uh, you know, I've already learned that if he has writing or he has lines drawn or anything like that, usually he's being full of shit. But let's find out. Maybe I'm wrong this time.
There is the terrestrial horizon. The horizon is where the sky apparently meets either terra firma or aqua liqua, whatever, aqua fluid.
Okay, obviously terra firma just means dry land. That's fine. That's a real term. Well, it's an archaic, but nonetheless real term. It just means firm ground. That's it. That's all. Nothing fancy about it. I've heard terra firma has been being thrown about by other flat earthers, uh, but um, anyway. So yeah, that's fine. I don't really mind that. But you'll notice that just like with Aquaband, oh sorry, with Etherband, he has what's called an Aquaband. Okay. And this is another one of those. He's rearranging. He's making up words, right? He's making up terms. He doesn't really quantify them. Doesn't really give an actual definition of them, other than the literal visual band, like whatever. When you see like you look at lakes or large bodies of water, sometimes they'll have those the stripes going through it, what appear to be stripes. In some cases, it is quite literally just, and especially where he's at in the what you call it, Chesapeake Bay. It's an estuary. It's where freshwater meets saltwater, and of course, there is some currents that can flow of these different, you know, different waters of different density. So you can have saltwater, primarily saltwater bay, with especially where he's at, because he's actually at where there's an uh, where the a river dumps water into the his area, and yeah, that's going to create a different current density. But basically, it's just he's seeing light refracted differently. So it could be literally just the winds blowing, uh, across breeze. It's just a variety of different reasons on why he's seeing these, but he calls them aqua bands. So when he's just making up some bullshit for an aquatic horizon, which that I'm sure it's a term, but he's probably gonna butcher it. He's already butchering it. He's trying to make up a word for something that already has a word for it, I guess. The aqua liqua, because that's a real thing. It's just God, it's annoying. It's annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so I made one of these before.
Ah,
I made it nicer, but this is what it is, okay? The Aether Band is everywhere in front of you, okay? It's the medium through which you are looking. This
okay. Just I think it's funny because he actually has it written there. Okay, he calls it. By the way, he does call it ether band because one ether has connotations anyway within the flat Earth community. It's a popular word, and it usually refers to the luminiferous ether. Now, Travis has evolved his term, right? It used to be called, crap on toast. I forgot what he used to call it. But basically, it's just his way of not wanting to say atmosphere. He actually said he called it an atmoplane, or whatever. He called it some other shit, right? But he has it written right there. One of the original terms for air was literally air, AER. He could have called it an airplane as opposed to ether band, or he could have called it an air band, which is kind of funny if you think about that one. Uh, but and again, he's saying band because saying plane when you sit there and add these ether plane is too long. I guess I don't know how that works, but aeroplane would have been funny, and it would have worked. It would have done precisely the same thing, and he would have been trading out a word that someone else uses anyway, since he likes to do that. It would have been funny, uh, but he just could have called it something like, you know, something other than it could have been Arrow Band. I don't care, but he chose Ether for the obvious reasons. I wanted to say Ether is a which religion? Greek or Roman? I can't remember which. But it basically means it was the substance that gods breathed. That's it. It was the what we breathe down here as lowly peasant mortals, you know, is just air. And what the gods breathed was called ether. And all it is that's it. It was just distinguish what the gods breathed compared to what we breathe. It's very interesting. It's probably got a good bit of an etymology to it, but nonetheless, the fact that he used the term was because of its association within the circle of flat earthers, uh, and just to avoid saying atmosphere. That's it. Just because atmosphere has the word sphere in it.
is not a blurry photo. This is a refracted image, okay? The
Oh, all right. Let's go try to edit this out. You know what? Nah. Y'all can hear that. Y'all can listen to it as if it's live. Now, okay. Pay attention to where it says narrow field. Okay. Uh, That's what he's. Anytime he's actually calling, he says it's a broad field of view. Basically, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Okay. Now, just literally just saying that it's when you're looking out, when you're just opening your eyes outside, you just open your eyes outside. You were looking through the ether band, but that and he's just saying that's responsible for all of these effects. So theoretically, the effects should be occurring in my house, in my living room as I'm recording this video. I should be able to see some of these because this is my field of vision. So where I'm at shouldn't actually have much of a factor on this, right? By his own, you'll listen to his reasoning. You should quite literally have all the effects that he talks about within your own home, right? And you notice that right there it says narrow field, right? By the way, it's still a part of the entire. There's no narrow field unless you squint. So what he's on about is when he talks about the ether band, that's all he's really talking about. He's described it before as being like a wall, right? And this is where Travis doesn't really honestly think in 3 dimensions. He talks about it. He talks about it. We'll find out. He talks about it being 3 dimensional, but he doesn't actually think of it 3 dimensionally because he only describes it through a 2 dimensional image, and he describes it 2 dimensionally. You know, you'll see.
Ether band simply refers to the air. Air, 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 air. See, there's air here above the water. Air, 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 air. The aether band is this entire field of view. You have a broad field of view. You're looking at the whole thing. If you want to like focus, go down narrow. You're gonna just look at this area right here. Look at this area here. You got a narrow field of view. Okay.
Now, if you notice, the area that he highlights as the narrow field is an inferior mirage. And the air, his broad version, right? Now, I tried to see if well, okay, the broad is just you see all the wobbly bits. That's just simple atmospheric turbulence, right? This is the heat shimmers that are visible on a hot day if you have some reference behind it. So you got to have something behind it to see it. You can see it on the hood of your car. You can see it on the roof of your car. You can see it down the road. It's not unique to the water, and he wants. This is one of the reasons why he does a lot of his stuff over water because reasons. You can any of the effects that he shows, you can get over the ground. It's not difficult. You can get obviously you can get inferior mirages. They show it all the time. You can see it when you're on the road. And they occur a lot closer than what he's showing here, even though he doesn't give you any depth of field because it's a 2 dimensional image he's looking at. Anyway, but yes, his narrow field is in fact it's not you'll understand. He doesn't understand that that's the surface of the water. That all it is just light refracting from the surface. Well, not from the surface of the water, but close to the surface of the water, meaning it's hugging the water, just like an inferior mirage hugs the road. You know, he'll give references to it, and we'll talk about it. But he gives it an odd. He gives something 3 dimensionality when it's not. Yeah, it's you'll see.
The aether band is everywhere. It's 3 dimensional. Okay.
See, he said it.
Right. We know and understand that this water is extending into the distance. This water is extending into the distance. And thankfully, on this day, we had a nice contrast of the sky and the water because of who knows why. Tide or
The high contrast was the settings on his camera coupled with where the sun was. This is something he could have adjusted for. You know, you could do it with it. You can do it on your cell phone, and I know he's using it. He's using a freaking P900, right? And I like how he's saying these aqua bands. You know, dude, hold on. Okay, there you can see a little bit better. Uh, yeah. See, he's just all these little arrows are meaningless, especially given that he gives this three dimensional. It's a three dimensional context. He's going to apply two dimensionality. It's he contradicts himself a lot, and talks about distances and things like that. One, he could give distances, and without any of these arrows, you would already logic, just off, just understanding. Most people can go, yeah, okay, that goes off in the distance. The image plane isn't actually uh, just a vertical, flat nothingness, right? Like a sheet of paper. People know we're not looking at a sheet of paper, right? It's weird that he has to go into this, uh, and I don't think he understands the way the way you depict axes. Anyway, he's not talking about the x-axis. He's talking about the z-axis or the z-axis, because x and y are up and down. Z is it gives that dimensionality.
currents. Who knows? Okay, you've got
Wait,
lavender
wait. Did he acknowledge it?
because of who knows why. Tide or currents. Who knows? Okay, you've
So he
got
might actually.
lavender.
Okay,
Okay,
the who knows. I can't stand it. Lemonbird does that. Who knows? You can actually find this stuff out, given the area. And I seriously didn't pay attention to it enough to sit there and pinpoint. But he says, it could be tides. It could be from the currents. Yes, dipshit. Yes, tides. The tide would probably play a little bit of a part in it, but the currents, and then the differences in the actual like density of the fluids. You have the ocean, right? The salt water in the bay, and the fresh water coming from the rivers and streams and shit. The tributaries, right there, they're intermixing. That's why the Chesapeake Bay is considered an estuary, because that's exactly what it is. It's a place where salt water, fresh water mix.
this first arrow represents physical distance. What's this distance? Do you know how far this is from here to here? No, you don't. But it moves into the distance, okay? Each of these aqua bands, right? Each of these little bands of water represents physical distance along the y-axis.
He just said that he has no idea, like, how far away these are, right? But yeah, he's saying that, oh, they're physical difference. You don't need one. It gives no indication of how wide those actually are. Given, like, in reality, like if you looked at it from above or from a different elevation, like how actually wide are these points? You know, that might help a little. But I mean, it's irrelevant in the end. I don't know why he goes into this. He knows the difference between himself at his observation point and to the distant shore. So this right here is just useless filler.
right here is where the water meets terra,
Hold on.
but it moves into the distance. Okay,
Uh-huh.
each of these aqua bands, right? Each of these little bands of water represents physical distance along the y-axis. Right here is where the water meets terra firma. Okay, we know this. We know this is what happens.
Okay. You see how highly contrasted this is. You see how dark the that area is. That area that he's pointed to. It may be just no, yeah, there's no he's just simply making a bullshit claim right here. You can't actually see where the actual land starts. So his giant arrow doesn't make any sense. You know, you just look at it and you're like, oh, okay, because I mean, maybe he's got a better view of it. Maybe his monitor, uh, he's able to see like the actual instead of being so highly contrasted. Maybe he's got a better, he can actually see the difference in the black swath of what is probably what is obviously a landmass, and where the definitive line where the water actually stops, like where it's supposed to meet the land, is his point of view. Um, but just from this right here, yeah, if you were just to go by this, you would hazard a guess that it was a lot like in the screen. It's where it says flat earthers, the circle, the FE, where it says Aquaban, all that kind of stuff. It's just a hair that arrow. If you follow that line, the arrow just to the corner of the like I don't know, second arrow down, the little arrows, not the big one, the squishy one, the squished one or whatever. Because I don't know why he uses these stupid arrows, but at this point in time, it's helpful because at least you would at least guess that the shoreline was somewhere closer to that. Only going off of this highly contrasted photo. Or at this point, we just call it an image because weird.
Okay, when we're talking about
Ah.
when we're talking about obstruction, I'm going to go back in a second to another image, but
Oh, by the way, a lot of what he does is one, Travis is a flat earther. He does think the earth is flat. He thinks that his observations they just confirm that position. They are evidence not only of the earth being flat, but he uses his entire whole point, right, is to address shit disappearing from the bottom up. That's it. That's all. That if the earth is flat, this is his rationalization, his reasoning why shit disappears from the bottom up on a flat surface. That's he has I don't know how many videos that are in line with this, but it's a lot. It's most of his channel, and that's it. It's his justification for why things disappear from the bottom up, as explained if the Earth is flat. So he's basically saying the Earth's flat. That's his position, and he goes from that position, Earth being flat, to here's his ad hoc rationalization for why things disappear from the bottom up. This isn't really any different than Life is Short. The only difference is with Life is Short, he just says it does it. Like there's a weird. He just comes up with some weird bullshit, and says shit disappears from bottom up because that's what things do on a flat surface, on a flat Earth, whatever. Even on a flat surface, he just goes off on a flat surface. But anyway, that's it, right? It's just a product of the Earth being flat, of things just disappear from bottom up on flat surfaces. It's not any different than people who sit there and make coins disappear on flat surfaces, right? They show it. Flat earthers do it, right? But that's not the point. Travis is, you're gonna see where he takes what he says that three-dimensional thing and he applies it so two-dimensionally, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's already started, you know. The vanishing line, where the physical and the refractive image become indistinguishable. And he has another one, his made up term, disclosing line, right? And this is where, again, that's another. I had to look it up just to see if it was a real term. I did. It's not. It's a fake shit that he came up with, where the refracted image slash mirage ends and the physical, I assume he's saying something else. Physical, he cut it off, so I can't tell. I forgot what he says. Well, he'll tell us anyway.
This is what I made. The vanishing line is where the physical and the refracted image become indistinguishable.
I like how he just arbitrarily drew a line there, like for real.
Like, where's the shoreline? We can't see it. Can't distinguish it. Can't see it here. And this.
If you can't see it, why do you have a line and why are you pointing to it? Fuck, how stupid is that? You can't see it, but here I'm going to point to my line, to my random line for shits and giggles. See, this in and of itself is a fucking deception. It's okay. Travis reminds me of those backyard magicians. You know, the guys you call when you got like either an office party or particularly usually it's with little kids, right? A birthday party or whatever. He's a birthday party magician, right? He's generally usually old. His costume is so costumey, and the tricks are very obvious, right? That to an adult you're like, oh, okay, yeah, duh. But to a kid, yeah, it's fascinating. He thinks you're the kids. He's that guy. He's that backyard magician, and he expects you to be that child going, ooh, oh, I'm not gonna fall for your bullshit. Anyway, yeah, this is one of those things. God, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes in, my brain is melting.
instance, it's because there's not enough light. Okay, but just follow along the idea. All right. Then you have this distance here.
Now, Travis has, yeah, hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs of this same exact landmass, by the way. With the little, he's done this more than once, right? Where you can see a little more. Why he chose this one? Couldn't tell you. Why this one? Because he likes pink, or because of the high contrast where you have to take his word for everything. I'm thinking that might be it.
Like, this is physical distance, not just physical height. Okay, it's 3 dimensional. Okay, it's
Wait.
3 dimensional. Where's the shoreline? We can't see it. Can't distinguish it. Can't see it here. In this instance, it's because there's not enough light. Okay, but just follow along the idea. All right. Then you have this distance here. Like, this is physical distance, not just physical height. Okay, it's
Okay.
it's 3 dimensional.
That was
Okay,
it
it's
right
three
there.
dimensional.
He's gonna notice height. He calls it height. And his indication is literally that space between those two lines, right? Which on a sheet of paper would literally just be that, right? He's saying it's three dimensional, goes off in the distance. Um, so as far as he's concerned, where that bottom line is, that's where the water is, and the land, which means that also that the land is sitting on that bottom line. And the reason why, and he's giving this height to his phenomena, right? He doesn't give depth because he never actually shows that. You know, if you ever looked at anything square on, a book, a box, the countertop, shit like that, you notice that you can't see. You just see that face, you know, the one side, right? You don't see the rest of it. You don't see the top of it, and you don't see the bottom of it. You just see that front face, okay? Uh, or like a brick wall. Think of it that way, like a brick wall that say it's a few. Oh, Great Wall of China. That's a good example. Okay, Great Wall of China. If you only look at the side of the wall, right, you get no idea of just how thick, how like farther away from you that actual, you know, the wall is, right? You just see the one face. This is literally him doing that, right? Bear this in mind. That is his position. That bottom line that he's showing right there, that's actually where the land is, and that space between those two lines is this wall, right? But not just a wall. Yeah, well, yeah, sort of like a wall that goes from whatever position out away from him. So it just shows up like looking at a fence, but it stays thick and goes off into the distance in some weird way, like a strange, uh, like a cutaway, like when they show like it just looks like that. It looks like a transection. That's what he's trying to say, or some shit like that. I don't fucking know. I can't give an analogy that makes any sense, other than he's got this wall erected, and it just happens to go from wherever he thinks that's supposed to be all the way to the shoreline, right? In some strange way.
This line here is what I have called the disclosing line, because this is where the refracted image or the mirage, this is where that ends, and then the physical becomes visible. Visible, physical, visible, physical, indistinguishable. Okay?
Yeah,
There you go.
it's
Not too
exactly what
hard.
I.
Okay?
Yeah, that gives you already what it is he's thinking. he's taking, yeah, he's transposing something that is in perspective. Just think of it in perspective. It's on the ground, or in this case, the water. All it is just a continuation, right? It doesn't like stop and pop up. You know, it's all laying down, if you will, right, into the distance. But in his mind, it's not. It's not. He's not. He's literally not thinking three dimensionally, and he's taking something that is a three dimensional concept, and he's ignored it, and he's applying two dimensions. Oh my God! It is just that simple. He's erecting a wall, or at least in his mind, it's somehow that way. But yeah, looking at a two dimensional image, applying a three dimensional principle, and then discarding that three dimensional, the purpose of that three dimension three-dimensional kind of shit and just making it two dimensions. He's giving something that doesn't exist. He's giving it that it isn't real. He's just looking at it and going, since it goes up or whatever, however you want to look at it, that it's literally just that. It's a physical height. Not understanding that that isn't how that works, or at least not acknowledging that. So he's giving it something that it doesn't have. Holy crap on toast. It couldn't be that fucking easy, could it?
Here we go. Here is where perspective and the Aether Band dance.
God. I'm mentioning these things, and like I said, I haven't fully invested any real time into this. But the fact that it's just going, oh, I couldn't have timed this better. By the way, I think it's funny because I'd actually asked him to compare two photos once. Once was a photo like they were both his photos, right? One was where I just his photo, and then another one where I actually took his photo and printed it out to I mean, it was small, like it wasn't big at all. Took a photo of it where it was sitting, like there was some plastic, right? And it looked like water. It seriously did. And I asked him to give me some information about the photo I did, right? Because I did. I took an actual picture. It was an actual photo. It just happened to be a photo of his photo on a piece of plastic. And he couldn't tell the difference. Like, he couldn't actually. He started making up all kinds of shit that I knew didn't exist. He started to just give all kinds of information that were literally couldn't be true in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Uh, so he's the fact that he does do a lot of these ones like right here, lots of atmospheric turbulence, right? A lot of heat shimmer. So you could see it happening. He has a video on this shit, but let's hear his explanation. And I love, dude. That's not how perspective looks. I don't know why he thinks. One of these days I have to do a simple course on perspective because this shit right here fucking annoys me.
Okay? Each of these arrows represents distance. Distance, 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 distance. Here at the very bottom here, this is the
Wait, distance? Oh, this poor dude. And again, it's arbitrary where he places these lines. Like the bottom line is roughly where he sees the mirroring, which is fine, more or less, right? It's not actually where the mirroring starts, if I remember correctly. But then he gives the random arrows. They don't make any sense. The extra lines. Oh, okay. He's got more lines in there at the very bottom that you can't see because he doesn't know how to crop a screen. Uh, but that top line is just an arbitrary line. It doesn't even. Why would that belong there if he's trying to say that the whole kit and caboodle starts there? What?
horizon. This is where the water visibly ends.
Oh, I've got to listen to that again.
Here at the very bottom here, this is the
Actually,
horizon.
I'm gonna have to pause this for a moment. Okay, before we continue, I would like to make a note on something. Right, the the layer at which, um, never mind. I'll get into it later. Anyway, let me back it up real quick.
Each of these arrows represents distance. Distance, 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 distance. Here at the very bottom here, this is the horizon. This is where the water visibly ends. Here we have this space right here. This is A mirage. Everything behind this mirage is physically there. If I could wipe away this mirage, you would see the cannon.
Again, he's doing it again. He's saying that where his other line was, the bottom line that you really can't see in, that the very edge of the image, right? So that's where the water appears to be, right? And he noted that in that where he's got his little mouse, that first arrow or whatever, he thinks that's a wall. Like he said, if he just wipes that away, the mirage, then you would see the rest of it. Uh, he doesn't understand that where he has his little arrow at, his actual mouse, the place he's saying is like a wall, isn't. That's still the water. This is a fundamental misunderstanding that he doesn't quite get. He's giving height to something, but he's basing that off of not thinking three dimensionally. He's thinking two dimensionally here. It's not a wall in any way, shape, fashion, or form, any more than a mirage on a road is a wall. This is this is a fundamental aspect of his entire thought process. Is that he thinks that if you just erase that, what he deems to be, what he says the mirage is, he thinks that that's something that is much taller. It has height. It has some thickness or whatever. Well, height is probably a better way of saying it, but yeah, it really is that simple. He's not thinking three dimensionally, or uh, in just that, just not understanding the actual fundamental principles of how a mirage works. In this case, this would be an inferior mirage, and an inferior mirage, they're called inferior mirages because they're below the objects in question. Like a superior mirage is still below the below eye level, but it is above the objects in question, right? Because of the temperature inversion. Right? An inferior mirage is just there's a temperature differential where the hot air is at the bottom. The hot air is caused by the warm water radiating. It's a thermal differential if you want to really kind of think of it that way. But this is funny. This is actually, yeah, this is the entire thing. All of it. All of his assumptions, all of his claims are based on this simple principle that he thinks that quite literally the mirage is, if you were to take his dimensions at any value, would be several feet high. It's he is treating it as if it's a wall as opposed to what it really is. Wow.
You would see the bushes. You would see the dock. You would see the shoreline. But you can't see it right now. Why not? It's vanished. It's between the vanishing line right here. Okay? This line right here represents the vanishing line where the physical light.
By the way, the vanishing line is not where he's pointing at it. Uh, the vanishing line is quite literally in the when you're using it for like drawings and things like that. It is eye level, right? In some cases, when it comes to photographs, depending on like it's imagine your camera is 90 degrees to your vertical, right? So it's perpendicular to your vertical. Um, and then you look forward. That's your eye level is anywhere along that position, right? Doesn't matter if it's an inch above the ground all the way up to 1,000 miles up or whatever. Your eye level is basically wherever the hell your eye is, and whether you pivot that point in any other direction really doesn't change anything as far as like parallels, because all it is a vanishing point or vanishing line is to establish where all the parallel lines will converge. Okay, it's a very simple process. Anyone can do it. If you, again, I am gonna have to do it like a crash course on perspective and being able to draw it and being able to depict it, because a photograph isn't much different than an actual it's a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional world. It's no different than a drawing or a painting doing the same thing. So why he has his quote-unquote vanishing line so far below his eye level, I don't know. Or at least what would appear to be the eye level of his camera, given if you were to look at it through, utilizing actual perspective. But I digress. So yes, he's using vanishing point or vanishing line incorrectly.
House stops, and the apparent lighthouse begins. That whole space right there is a mirage. How far is this distance? You don't know. But there's a physical distance represented here. This is just like the shadow of a tree. This is the tree. It's 100 feet high. This is the shadow. Is the shadow equal to the tree's height? You don't know.
See, there's the contradiction in his thought process. He gives a height to the mirage, right? And then turns around and is saying that no, it really isn't. It doesn't have any height. It's like a shadow, because obviously shadows on the ground, or in this case, the on the ground or whatever, they don't actually have a height, right? Yeah, they don't really have a height. Uh, so, or at least that you can perceive, I guess is probably a better way of putting that one. Unless you had elements involved that could show you, like, shit like that. But this is where he's changing from having something that is technically two dimensions. He gives it three dimensionality on a two-dimensional depiction, and then goes around and says, well, it's not really that. It's actually two-dimensional. And this is where these are contradictory points of view. And he's making these statements, and he's going to make these claims because he already said that if he were to wipe away that mirage, you would then see in those between those little yellow lines that you would actually see the objects that are supposed to be behind it. It can't be behind it if it doesn't have the ability to do that. See, it's contradictory.
It could be twice, 3 times. This could be 4 times the physical length of this. And everything behind it is not visible to your eye. Okay?
Also, that's not how reflections work. Essentially, a mirage, or an infrared mirage in this case, it's refracting the light in such a way like a reflection, okay, like a mirror. It's not really indifferent. That's why it looks like a mirror, because that's exactly what it's doing. It is, and the mirror. Think of it this way: take a mirror, put it on the ground or put it on a table, whatever. Put an object on the mirror, right, and then look at it from various angles, right? the mirror. This is where it's not like a shadow. See, he was trying to make it seem as if it's like a shadow, and that's because the shadows they stretch, and if you look at them in sort of a you change your point of view. You get closer to the base of the shadow or the base of the object. The angle down. You make the angle. It would be less steep if that's a better way of looking at it. Uh, it's a shallower angle. It makes the shadow look shorter, right? And if you raise up in elevation, then you'll see that the length of the shadow is much longer that way. This is not how a reflection, in the case of what's being refracted, because refraction is just a reflection anyway, of the mirage, that's not how that works. It doesn't act like a shadow in that way. So for him to sit there and go, we don't know the distance, he's in some weird way expecting to see, if he raised an elevation, he's expecting to see an oddly elongated mirror image, right? Like a shadow does. A shadow can be long, depending on, because of the angle of which the light's hitting it. In his brain, he's trying to make that association that the mirage is like a shadow in that it has a length to it, and it doesn't work that way. You could hold up a mirror. I think, in fact, I actually found a photo of that lighthouse uh, being reflected in some puddles. You know, so it's the same principle. It's just the light's just being reflected, right, off of that particular uh, that change in density, that less dense layer facilitates the light to bounce off of it. It creates effectively a little bit of a barrier, right? The light's just bouncing off of it, not unlike a mirror. And he isn't getting that.
This top line here represents this lightkeeper's house on the ground across the street behind the lighthouse. It's farther into the distance. All this is, guys, is distance. This is perspective.
He also doesn't really make a note that it is in the distance. It's like 200 yards behind the lighthouse. And due to his, because of the fact of how his camera is doing, right? It's changing, kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's compression. It's where the object behind is actually is showing to be much larger than it appears to be much larger than it really is. It brings background stuff, like it makes it larger. It's a really neat camera trick, and they it's kind of like dolly zoom, right? But the reality is that, yeah, if you saw any photographs, I have found other photographs where, yeah, you can tell that the lighthouse is much further away than even what he's depicting here. You see, it in this, albeit ridiculously distorted image, it still makes it look like the lighthouse is in close proximity to, sorry, the lighthouse and the lightkeeper's house look like they're right next to each other, or at least really close together. And they're not. They're just not. It is like nearly a football field away. It's almost a football field difference. Actually, no, that'd be two football fields. So 200 yards, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's nearly two football fields away. Doesn't look it, does it? That's an effect from his camera.
And the Aether Band dancing together. Well, Travis, are you telling me is it perspective or is it the ether band? Yep.
That's a common thing with Travis. You ask a question, give an explanation. He didn't really actually say anything in that. He just repeated, just saying it's the ether band and its perspective. He gave no actual real information there. Nothing quantifiable, at least.
Okay. I don't even know where to go right now.
See what I mean? Oh, look,
Just
another
another
image.
demonstration here, okay? What's happening with this boat right here? Why can't we not see the hull? Where is the hull? Where would you say the hull is? Where the hull is the hull?
I'm going to make a prediction, and he's going to say it's behind the Mirage. How much you want to bet? Again, it says just vanishing line. Dude, that is not how that works, man. That is so not how that works. Watch. He's going to give that three-dimensional aspect to it, something that doesn't have the dimensions. He's going to give it height and not actually quantify any of that.
Right?
He's not going to justify it, that's for sure.
We have the vanishing line. We have the mirage. We have the water that is breaking the band here. It's poking its head up through the mirage. The water is not the mirrored. This is not a reflection. This is not a reflection.
Yeah, it really is. Um, it is in the sense that the water itself is not the thing that is causing the it's not the direct. It's not like looking at your reflection in the water. This is, in fact, the light is being reflected from that layer of less dense air that is hugging. It's literally just. I think I was able to actually capture it, my own observations. It's not very high. It's probably maybe 3 inches at the most, maybe, depending on how extreme the temperature differential is, how warm the water is compared to how cool the air is, and that radiant, that thin layer of air that's being irradiated, for lack of a better term, irradiated by the warmth of the water. Uh, it, it garners more explanation than that, but nonetheless, it's a small, very thin layer of this on the surface. Just like on the road, you see it on the road all the fucking time, especially during summertime here, at least in where I'm from. You look out, the asphalt is ridiculous, like cook an egg hot. Obviously, the air is not the same temperature as the fucking asphalt. The asphalt irradiates heat. It radiates heat. It gives that thermal. It's thermal radiation. That's all it really is. It's warming the air that sits right on top of it. Right. That still and that air is competing with the pressure of the rest of the atmosphere, the cooler air that's obviously falling, right? So you have basically heavy air sitting on top of light air, like if you want to imagine that, right? And it compresses it to a very small point. But not just that, as that hot air rises, it cools off. So the effect is very, very short lived, and it's right there, very close to the surface, right? That's all that's happening. if you're ever curious, you can kind of do this with a glass of water and one of those little pet lasers, right? If you point the laser at what is it, a critical angle, I think that's what it's called, at such a way, the light will not penetrate the top of the water, right? If you're, oh, sorry, from underneath. My bad. They have other videos where they show this at certain angles. It just cannot penetrate outside of the water because it's, or inside of the water for that matter, but outside of the water because it's a denser medium. Water is obviously denser than air, so it just reflects right off of the less dense aspect of the medium, i.e., in this case, that ultra thin layer of hot air or warmed air, however you want to put it. It's just bing, and it causes a reflection just as much as reflective material like glass does it. Just plain glass will do it, obviously. So will plastic. Yeah, I proved that point. But also a mirror, which is specifically designed to do that. It's reflective. With the water, just like the glass, just like with air, it's refractive, but it's still, the effect is the same. It's reflecting the light, which is why you get that mirrored image.
This is a mirage, and it's in the air. And this water is poking its head up through the air.
Weird, right? Again, there's that weird two-dimensional, three-dimensional, two-dimensional thing that he's doing. It's poking up through it, but it's still somehow a wall that's got a height, and some. You see, it doesn't make sense.
The angle at which this. The reason why you can't see water right here above this line right here is it's too low. It's too low. This is visible because it is high enough above the angle of the mirage. Okay.
Sort of, but not really.
Oh, this is. I don't even know if this is worth it. I don't even know if this is worth it.
I noticed he didn't address it.
Right here we have
old number 17.
Two boats in the distance. I'm going to come back here. Okay. Here's a boat. Why can't we see the hull? Here's a boat. Why can't we see the hull? Here is the shoreline. This boat and this boat are level with each other.
Now, there's an assumption. I'll have to crop that out.
Oh, that's because level is oriented toward the center of the earth.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. He's made a claim that they're both level or what have you. All you see is two smudgy motherfucking things moving across. You know, it's going from stage left to stage right, if you will, right? Just moving across the screen. He has absolutely no idea. For all you know, it's one object. It's probably not, but it could be just very well just one object, which would be why they look like they're moving in uniform. I don't fucking know. I will honestly say that. But if it could be. Now, oddly enough, where he has his mouse, right, and if you probably follow the line all the way from all the way across the screen, you can see where the stuff kind of doubles over, right? You see where the miraging occurs. I can't wait to hear what he says about that. By the way, that buoy number 17 helped me so much in figuring out roughly when Travis is actually changing his elevation. Like when he does these elevation changes from right next to his little signpost to the sidewalk, which is 10 feet above all that. you know, and other such places. But yeah, that buoy number 17 helped me kind of figure that out. But anywho,
Stupid people. Okay, this horizon here. What's causing this horizon? What's causing this horizon?
now what's strange is he says that's a horizon. No, even I can see that that's not an actual horizon. And anyone who has three brain cells would figure that out too. But he's probably gonna show that he's down to his last one.
Why can't we see more water? Like water, water, water. Where'd the water go? Where'd the water go? Where'd it go? Where's the water? Is it down behind the? Is it down? Is it down here?
Dude, if it was up your ass doing cartwheels, you still wouldn't know where the fuck it was.
Is it sloping down? Okay, this is. Listen, guys, I'm making fun of you because this is how stupid you are. Okay, this is all distance. This is the shoreline right here. This is all distance. Straight across. Okay? Why can you not see this very clearly? What is this? Do you know what this is? I don't know what this is. Could be another boat. On the
The simplistic reason why you can't tell anything from these images is one. Let's just talk about the reality. Is you can't focus for shit, Travis. You have manual settings on your camera, and where you can get you can probably get a clearer, at least a more defined. Still you're gonna have some kind of event, due to the turbulence, of the heat differentials, right? These pressure differentials. You'll have that turbulence that happens, the wavy heat haze shit going on. Yeah, over a distance, it makes things blurry. It makes them slightly out of focus, right? No matter how much you try to focus in on them, you can kind of sort of crisp it up a little bit, but you get to see it more defined, right? You get to actually see those wobbly bits a little clearer. It doesn't change them from being wobbly. In this case, it could very well be just you not focusing very well, and that makes it fuzzier, which of course makes it harder to distinguish.
water. Higher up. Wait, are you saying that it's? Are you saying that it's up? Are you saying that things in the distance? I mean, whatever. I gotta go to work. I'd spend all morning on this shit.
He says this, and
Okay, here we go.
Still got 10 more
Here
minutes.
it comes. Here it comes. Ready? Okay, here comes the contrast when refraction is less. Okay, everybody? This is fuck.
I am still thinking that it is possibly just one object, because they are oddly moving in unison. So if there were two different objects and they're both going the same exact speeds, if it's two different boats and they're going like maybe it's a race or something, possibly they're going the same, but there doesn't seem to be any like the forward blob isn't detaching itself from or going ahead of or behind of the other longer, slightly sailboat looking blob. I could be wrong. We'll find out.
High refraction. A lot of distortion. It's not hard to describe this. What's a mathematical equation? Where's your math for this?
Actually, this is just he's not actually zooming in on this. This is just an enlarged. All they did was enlarge it, because as you can see, the water where his mouse is, right, isn't very clear either. It's just highly pixelated. In the end, it's just, yeah. It might have been, and he's no longer at optical zoom. He might have gone into digital zoom. It might be from the camera, or it could be because this is a video. He could have enlarged it as he was quote unquote analyzing it or doing this shit. I don't know.
Less is more. Boom. Boom. Why isn't this boat inverted on itself? Why are we seeing farther into the distance? If you go back and make the contrast with this channel marker, you don't have this much water here. There's a house. I didn't see that house in the other image. This boat is stretched. It's squashed.
No, it's not. Um, as far as I can tell, it's a normal sized boat, and it's just, yeah, him saying it's squashed, he has no basis on that. Um, as far as the other things in the background, if I remember correctly, in his other images, see right here, this isn't what I was referring to. See, he chooses which video or what photos to look at. Uh, in this case, he is. It's much more focused, and you can tell it's much more focused because you can see some of the contrasts in like the hills in the background. You know, it's hazy, but it's still a little bit more distinguishable. You know, anything that's brightly lit, or in this case, white, like some of these houses, you can actually see like the one in the far right. You can tell it's a house, or at least a building that has a roof, even though you can't really distinguish the roof itself from the rest of the background, but you can distinguish that highly, it's contrasted enough, the white paint, to where you can still see where the slant of the roof would be on it. You can see these things. Uh, it's a little more apparent. Um, is there a little bit of mirroring? Not as much. Not as much. Hold on. Let's go back to the other. Yeah, one more. Maybe that's okay. I know he's just gonna ramble on. All right.
Why can you not see this very clearly?
Ah.
What is this? Do you know what this is? I don't know what this is.
I see.
Could be another boat.
Okay.
On the water.
Let's
higher up.
If you can see.
Wait, are you saying that it's? Are you saying that it's up? Are you saying that
17?
things in the distance?
Here. Okay.
Out behind is it?
Okay. I don't know if whenever I pause it, you get to see any of these marks from YouTube, but if you do, this helps. Anyway, at the very corner, I'll show you. You can kind of see it over here. That's the buoy, right? That kind of like where you see those little, like right here towards the right hand corner. Okay, that green object with the hole sticking up off of it. Those things are actually pretty fucking big, by the way. I actually had to seriously look them up. Give you any indication, the hole itself, those little the they're the for the lifting it up, putting it in the water and shit like that. You can also use it as an anchor point. Those are actually like just the hole itself is about 6 inches in diameter, just to give you a clue on how large these things are. But anyway, so you see where it's at, right? Now, and I love it because he does this. Uh, he'll show it. Okay. But you notice that things shift, right? So let's get back to what he was just talking about, and you see where the buoy's at now. And when I pause it, you'll see. Notice that it's a whole lot different, right? It's much higher in the the frame, right? Um, so these are indications on changes. And I understand that the buoys themselves will it'll move a little bit because it's chained to the bottom, so it's anchored in point. So there'll be some movement, but not a lot. But you can see how it's just It's crisp. It's clear. You can see the buoy. You can see past it. You can see the boat. Uh, so let's just, God, dude, that buoy kills it every time. He does. He has no idea.
Why are we seeing farther into the distance? If you go back and make the contrast with this channel marker, you don't have this much water here. There's a house. I didn't see that house in the other image. This boat is stretched. It's squashed. Okay? Why is this boat visible when the others weren't? This boat should be swallowed up into a mirage, but the mirage isn't there. Oh my, look at all these houses. Where did they come from? Where'd they come from? Huh.
Bingo. Did you catch it? I bet you didn't. Okay. Travis likes to say he's a certain height above the water. Right? That he's standing in most cases right next to a sign, which is of course that little signpost is actually sticking in the water, so he's right there at the water. He has tons of videos where he shows himself being there. He says that that's where he's at when he's taking most of these things. Problem is, I know how tall that marker is. I know the actual dimensions of the buoy itself. It's not that number 17 is about a foot tall. Okay, if that gives you any indication. Now, uh, so let's go. Yeah, it actually is about because the anchor points are about six. Remember, I said that hole is about 6 inches in diameter. That number 17 is about a foot tall. Okay, it has to be because it's got to be visible from boats at a distance. So the number itself is fairly large. All right, but did you catch what happened? Now, if Travis was say 4 feet, or what does he say? He says it's about five and some change. Basically, the height of his tripod, fully extended, plus the camera, right to the center of the camera's lens, or what have you. It's only about, I think he said 5'2" or 5'4", right? When he shows his videos, he always, and he's got other tripods now that can actually put the camera where he could be fully erect. He could stand up, he doesn't have to hunch over. He could just stand up normal and look straight into the view. Well, he doesn't look through viewfinders. He just looks through the screen, where he can just look through the screen and it would be right the fuck there, right? Well, I mean, technically the camera might have a digital viewfinder. Well, not a digital viewfinder. It's kind of hard to explain. Some of them have mirrors in them that reflect onto the sensor, and that's a viewfinder. I don't know if the P900 has a. I mean, technically, a viewfinder is sort of. Anyway, I'm not sure if it has like a peep sight kind of viewfinder. Don't know. Anyway, but if that were true, then anything taller than him, and if he has his camera pointed straight ahead, right? If his camera is perpendicular to his vertical, that 90-degree angle between camera and, being plumb, if you will, right? Or horizontal. I can't do Bev's accent. Uh, but if that were true, right? Everything below his eye level would be shorter, would be that 5'2" and shorter. Anything above that, right? If it's 6 foot, if it's 8 feet, if it's however many feet above the surface that he's supposed to be also on, it will be above his camera's line of sight, right? That center of the lens, right? One, I think it's funny because if you look at some of this shit, you could tell that he has his camera pointed up a lot because he and if he's not, then that should tell you something right there. But let's go back real quick and see if you catch it one more time. Okay, pay attention. If you put cross in between this, it's supposed to reflect his height, right?
Into a mirage, but the mirage isn't there. Oh my, look at all these houses. Where did they come from? Where'd they come from?
Bingo. That's a boat. Bottom right corner. Now, I don't know what kind of boat it is, or whether or not that person is standing up or sitting down. But I can probably fathom that it is not sitting it's not sitting like flat on the water, at knee high or what have you. Just thought I'd show that because which of course this does indicate that Travis is much higher in elevation. Let me rephrase this. It is making it extremely plausible because I can tell right now, even if he pointed his camera downward to be more horizontal, to have it more parallel, if you will. Again, that perpendicular to his plumb. That isn't going to change where that that boat is. It's still going to look like it's below his line of sight, below his eye level. Um, and that seems to be probably not really true because at the very least, it's as tall as a car. I'm guessing. I'm probably right when I say that. It's probably a little bit taller and is probably above, or at least supposed to be above, the line of sight of his camera. Only funny when you catch it.
Huh.
It was just a blink, wasn't
That's
it?
strange. Where did they come from? Okay.
Oh, and by the way, that would indicate, of course, that he is much higher. Well, not much, much higher, but he's higher in elevation. He's probably at his 10-foot mark. Uh, he's probably on the sidewalk or very near the sidewalk when he was taking this picture or this video. And the other video, he was probably closer to his what you call it, um, that signpost that's next to the water. So he's probably at maybe 4 foot. That'd be my guess.
I'm gonna go forward just because I can't keep doing this. Okay, here we go. This is awesome right here. Okay, this is a great shot of Battery Island that Erebus, the Erebus, whatever. I'm not gonna. Okay, look.
I live rent free in his skull. Just saying.
Shore to shore, 3 miles away. Shore to shore. Shore to shore.
Not really. Because, and I can tell you right now, that what he called a church, which in reality is a 2-story lighthouse. That little window is a second-story window. The land you see that it looks like it's sitting on is not where it's at. That's actually in front of it. Several. I'd say I forgot the measurements, but it's a good distance away. Um, yeah, the actual shape of the island looks more like a croissant, right, than a solid piece of land, like one uniform piece of land. Which, by the way, is really interesting, is because behind that is more water. And again, and those two posts that are sticking up in the air just to the left of it, those are not on the island. Those are further in the background, and you can't distinguish like a lot further in the background. It's simply just an effect camera, and of course, the angle at which he's at makes it look like that's one solid island. At least like one like, but it's got like a lagoon and everything. It's a huge. It's nice. It's an interesting place, and they have apparently it's a recreational. There's two islands, that one and another one. They're not far away from each other, and yeah, I had to do the research to tell him what the fuck it was called. I think it's weird because this motherfucker is from this area, the area in which he does his photographs. So he's from there. I am nowhere near there, and I was able to research this stuff based solely on the bare information that he gives, the smallest amount of information that he gives. I was able to figure out what they were called, and it's not Battery Island. It's called Fishing Battery Island, and it has a reach. It actually has a. It's an artificial. It's an artificial island. It was built there. They built it. Uh, so it's not. It was. It's got a whole history to it. Needless to say, it's an artificial island. It's really kind of cool. Got an interesting history. It was a lot more going on to it than what exists now. Uh, but yeah, Jesus.
This is not.
Oh, and he's never addressed the fact that it's a second that what you see of the that what you see of the actual lighthouse is the second story plus like the lighthouse portion of it. That window is again, like I said, it's in the second story. It's a second story window. The black little triangle in the triangle, rectangle, right? You can kind of see it, sort of.
These boats are not. I've got other images where there's high refraction here. These boats would be vanished. You wouldn't be able to see them.
Because he's closer to the water when he takes those images. Which is also why that from this vantage point you're able to see that that little bit of beach, right? That is nowhere near the lighthouse, by the way. Well, I mean, it's near, but it's like I think a couple hundred yards or some shit.
Okay, but there is low refraction. There's not no refraction. There's not no refraction. There's low refraction. Okay? Here comes the contrast.
If you had no refraction whatsoever, you would also have a blank black screen. There would be nothing. The light is being to get to you. It has to go. It has to refract. So the amount of refraction that occurs from point A to point B, just like in your own house, when you're looking around your room, there's refraction from your. You put your hand in front of your face. There's refraction. You know, this isn't a difficult concept. But you're the the how minuscule, how small, tiny little bit that refraction is, right? Is what is, yeah. If it's so small to be insignificant, and in some days, oddly enough, a little bit like what you're showing now, In this particular one, because you are higher above where you get that obvious, I'm not gonna say heavy refraction, but you get, uh, more so. You're above it, or at least in a smaller portion of it. So yeah, you're able, and you're higher up, so you get a higher vantage point. You're able to see uh, a little bit more. That's it. This is why it looks the way it looks, because you're actually paying attention to how your camera's acting, and you're also higher up.
With the uh, Southern Cross. Okay, where these boats are going into the distance. They're going.
I have no idea what he means by Southern Cross. He's co-opting a term. If I remember correctly, he calls some shit he sees. He calls it a Southern Cross. Again, it's just co-opting terminology. Southern Cross usually is the term for the South Pole. The South Polar stars are called the Southern Cross, if I remember correctly, because the South Pole doesn't have a singular polar star. It has a group of stars uh, that are called the Southern Cross. So it's just he's co-opting a term just for it's just by doing that it creates this. It's psychological and it's manipulative. Um, it's bullshit.
Going away from us. Okay. Here's another marker right here. This little buoy. I don't have no idea what this pylon is here. It just keeps floating there. Look at there's a sign on the fucking shoreline. Okay. Now look over here. Look at this. We're looking straight across. Those are rocks. People. Okay, look at these channel markers. Boom. This channel marker, I hardly ever see this channel marker because it's behind the mirage. I see this building inverted.
Now there he goes again. Behind the mirage. He gives it that strange three-dimensional quality that it really doesn't actually have. Not in the way he's so the mirage is at least tall enough to hide the channel marker, however tall that's supposed to be. Which, from the looks of it, given the size of the boat that's near it, it seems to be on the same plane as it. It would be not small, right? So in effect, it would cover up the boat, or most of that boat, on the where he has his over there in the bottom right, right. So again, he gives it that strange three-dimensional quality that it can cover up stuff. Then he erases that three-dimensional quality, acts like it's like a shadow, and then yeah,
on itself all the time. Okay, look at this, right? No.
And that's what happens if you don't.
Okay, sorry, I must have paused it right when it was going to transition.
That's funny.
All right, note these two channel markers. Okay, right here. Okay, we're only going to see this green one in the Southern Cross image that's coming up right now. We're not going to see this one.
Okay, now we're gonna hear about the Southern Cross. Now, what's interesting to note is the green one in the green one all the way to the right is closer. It's physically closer to the observer. And if you notice, it's below the quote unquote horizon, right? It's below where those rocks are supposed to be, right? It's physically below the red marker that he has his mouse on. All right. Well, it appears to be lower because it's closer to us, and perspective is their thing. Perspective actually does exist, oddly enough. But you're gonna notice, and I'm bet dollars to donuts, that when he shows the image, right, the green channel marker will be raised. Right? That's because he's going to change his elevation. And of course, when you change your elevation, it's it shows the foreshortening becomes more exaggerated. You know, if you lower your vantage point, the foreshortening becomes much more obvious, much more exaggerated, and that's bet money that's what he's going to do, right?
Why not? Because it's vanished. All right. Now look at what we saw right here. Okay, right here.
Ah, this is perfect. You can see it. You could see the the building. That building, it's right there where the channel marker is, the red buoy, right? Right there where that it looks like it's an arrow. That rectangular thing, that's a two-story window. That's a window 2 stories up. Like for real. This is how you know that he's changed elevation. This is one of the reasons why you know that he's changed elevations. Because of where that red marker is in relationship to the building. It is now where before it was well below the window. In this one, the marker is it looks like it's just, just right across. Oh, dude, stop being so obvious.
There's one of the signs. You can go back. There's a sign on the beach right here. Okay. Here's the channel marker here. The Southern Cross is going into the band. Perspective and a eighth.
Oh, that's why he calls it the Southern Cross, because the boat's name is called Southern Cross. Okay, that makes sense now. I get it. All right. Or at least, given the smudges, it probably that's what it says. Uh, sure. Okay. Other problems, just to let you know, later on you'll notice that all of this right here becomes funny. This is all just funny to me because it's just all indications of his elevation change.
Band are dancing. Okay. Here is where did this horizon come from? There wasn't a horizon in this image back here.
That is not the horizon.
See this right here? There's no horizon here. You see the water breaking through the band there, poking its head up? This mirror.
Now, see, he did it again. He's removed that three-dimensional quality to it that he added to it before, and now is saying that it's more like a blanket, like a thin blanket, where the water's able to poke out from. So see, he doesn't realize the actual changes in his concepts, where it's three-dimensional, then it's not so three-dimensional, and then it's more like a shadow as opposed to like a wall, and he these are all he just this is the contradictory position that he takes. But he's gonna say that this boat's gonna go into it. It's gonna go into it. It's gonna be hilarious.
Mirage is not a reflection. It is a mirage. It is not reflecting off the surface of the water.
Technically, no. It is reflecting off of that super ultra thin layer of uh, irradiated air, the hot air, that's probably no more than a, probably less than a hand spans tall. So we're talking about, maybe 2 or 3, maybe anywhere between 1 to 3 inches. I'm going super like 3 inches is probably about the right amount, or at least not right amount, but that's the maximum amount. It's probably no more than maybe half inch, maybe a little bit, A little bit more, but not much. Which is also why those little waves, those little ripples of the water, are able to poke right above it.
All right, should be coming up on the channel markers. Oy, oy, oy. I'm late for work. Okay, there. Okay, there it is. I cut it off too soon, but whatever. All right, so we should be seeing, right? Okay, so here, there's the house. Here's that warehouse. See that warehouse right here? You know that right here.
Pay attention to even that, the relationship between the water and the warehouse, or the buoy in the warehouse. That was the trick. He's gonna show it, but the relationship between where the green buoy is and where the house is, and you'll notice that there's how much closer to that buoy is, like narrowing that gap between the roof of the warehouse and where the top of the green buoy is, dude. It's just funny.
In front of this warehouse is a red channel marker. Why can't you see it? Why can't you see that red channel marker? There should be. It might be it right there.
I like that. Why can't you see it? Oh, that might be right there. Make up your mind, dude. Could it be? Could it be that it might be there a little bit? Might be able to see it just a smidge, but it's all fucked up by the Riley criteria or your inability to fucking focus for shit. Who knows? You ever notice that when he's higher, he does so much better as far as focusing. He's able to focus clearly. It's able to get all that, information. He does autofocus. He doesn't do it manually. The sensor's able to recognize it and things like that. Whereas when he's lower to the ground, the sensor is reading off of, the air is a physical thing. So when he's doing all this fun stuff, the camera's trying to focus in on what's closer to him as opposed to what's further away, which is one of the reasons why you'll see these channel markers that are close to him in pretty good detail, pretty good. Their focus, that's where the focus is at. It's much more forward, right? It's closer to him than it is further away from him. So when he's focusing on something is just forward of his position, as opposed to the distant, the object in the distance. That's because it's autofocus and it's trying to ignore what it perceives to be blurry and unable to focus in on it. Changing it to manual focus will help, but between the turbulence and the actual haze that's going on, because it is a hazy day. You can see it's just a little bit hazy, which is fine. You can actually do some auto contrast. You could do things on the spot to help out, to help yourself to sit there and be able to see it more clear. Just saying. But yeah, you're gonna see that the channel marker is much. Where its relationship in the frame is gonna be different.
Okay, but why can't you see it? It's behind and it's in the band. Okay. Here comes.
Right? How can it be behind it? Okay, there's that weirdness. He's saying it's behind it, which means that there has to be some kind of wall there. It has to be behind something. It has to be so. It has to be some kind of something with height. And then it's basically kind of a weird, yeah, like a thick wall, right? So it's got height, and then it's got dimensions away from you. So it just, God, it's funny.
There's the green marker. There it is right here. Do you guys see?
Wait. Let him do it again.
Here comes.
I want to pause it.
There's the.
God damn it. It's too dark. He does the transition too quick.
And it's in the.
Okay. Dude. All right. He's gonna show it.
Channel marker. Why can't you see it? Why can't you see that red channel marker? There should be. It might be it right there. Okay, but why can't you see it? It's behind and it's in the.
God damn it. Anyway, you can see on barely see it. Hopefully he'll go back to it. But the relationship between where the warehouse was, right, and where that channel marker is, you'll see the difference, the distances, in the screen. You could see it. There's much more to it. You could. It looks like it's much higher, right? This is caused from him being much lower. And hopefully in the transition you'll see it for real. But note the differences in the relationship between the warehouse and that green buoy has changed. And he can't claim that it's the ether band because he's noting that objects forward of the position of the green buoy are in and behind, which means the ether band is after, is forward of the position of the green channel marker, which is strange, and it's only in that small region, which means that the warehouse itself is not in his, in this area, right?
And okay, here comes.
Yes, please pause it at the right point because
There's the green marker. There it is right here. Do you guys see this? There's the distance.
See?
Okay? This is not difficult.
See the relationship difference?
Same angle, same distance and height.
He's lying.
These boats should be in an.
He even showed the comparison. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Anytime he says same angle, same height, same distance, he's lying.
There's the green marker. There it is right here. Do you guys see this? There's the distance. Okay?
You see? You see the distance?
This is not difficult. Same angle, same distance and height. These boats should be in an inferior mirage right now, just like the Southern Cross was. There they go.
You see, again, there's that three-dimensionality that doesn't exist. He's giving it that three-dimensionality, and he's going to remove it again. It's just, God, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He's holding two conflicting ideas. It's like a shadow, but it's which means it has this sort of like a coat of paint, if you will, right? It's about as three-dimensional as a coat of paint. That's probably a good analogy. It's like a coat of paint. That's probably. But then he says it's a wall. He acts like as if it's got this wall, and then it's simultaneously like a coat of paint, but it's also like a thick layer cake, or like a cake, like a sheet cake, right? That's probably a better way. It's like sheet cake. Okay. So somehow it's as thin as a layer of paint, but it's also as thick as a sheet cake in comparison. Right? Wow.
Going away, going into the distance, okay? Right?
It's just funny.
Where's this boat? Why can't you see the hull of this boat? Anybody? What's creating this horizon line?
By the way he's talking, as if it's to like a live stream or some shit, he's not. So it's odd that he does that. But again, he's going to make a whole bunch of statements about this particular image, and they're probably all mostly going to be wrong.
What's creating this horizon? Why can't you see the shoreline? This boat is right here. It's right there. If we could wipe away this mirage, you would see the boat.
See what I mean? He just keeps doing it.
On water. And you would see the water extend into the distance. This is not hard, guys. It's not difficult, okay? Now, I could show you this shit left and right. This is a pavilion. This isn't even to scale. This is like 100 yards. 100 yards, okay? This pavilion is for...
He actually apparently has no idea. Like, I'm pretty sure it's further than 100 yards. I don't really remember. It could be 100 yards. Um, but there's a lot of issues with this particular. It's nice and clear. Oddly enough, see, he can take a reasonably clear image, right? Even though you see the distortions, obviously, you see them, but they're very clear. They're very identifiable. He's also very close to the water. The house itself, by his own admission, is sitting. In reality, it's not sitting. He says it's 16 feet above the water. The reality is, I think it's close to like the second, the actual first, the ground. Okay, it has two ground levels. If that makes any sense, I guess. There's from the island, or from the it's not an island, but from the land side. There's there's you enter into the house, and then there's a downstairs portion, which is what you can actually see from the shoreline, right? So it's a neat shape, but where the landward side, it's about, I think it says about close to 16 feet in elevation, right? But on the bay side, right, the foundation is that floor, the bottom of that floor, is roughly, I think, 8 feet above the water. So but he just says it's 16 feet, so we can go with that. That makes it so much funnier, right? Because now he has to explain 16 feet of missing land, which means that somehow or another his ether band has to be at least 16 feet high and somehow be like a shadow and be through it. Keep going. It's funny.
14 feet off.
Oh, which would also make it above his head. Wait, I think you just said it. But that would mean his ether band, his whatever he's, is technically above his head by like 10 feet.
This is a pavilion. This isn't even to scale. This is like 100 yards. 100 yards. Okay? This pavilion...
Which, by the way, how is it not to scale? I don't understand what he's trying to... The distance is, if it's 100 yards, 100 yards. So there's no scale issue here.
Pavilion is 14 feet off the ground and 40 feet off the shore. Do you think that's
Think about that for a moment. 14 feet off the ground. Wait, repeat that one more time. Does that make any sense?
Guys, it's not difficult, okay? Now, I could show you this shit left and right. This is a pavilion. This isn't even to scale. This is like 100 yards. 100 yards.
Again,
okay?
I don't know why I said this.
This pavilion is 14 feet off the ground and 40 feet off the shore. Do you think that's...
Now I get it. Okay. One, it's not literally 40 feet. I think this is how dumb he is. Okay, in these statements. How it's fucking stupid. Okay. The pavilion, right, is at best, I think it's close to maybe 3, maybe 4 feet. It's about 4 feet. The bottom of it, the floor of the pavilion, right? The slab it's sitting on is about I think 3 or 4 feet above the water. So its elevation is roughly 3 or 4 feet, give or take. The He's just making it seem like it's 40 feet up, when what it really means is it's about 40 feet from, like, there's a beach that's 40 feet in front of it. It's a 40-foot beach, roughly, if you want it. Not 40 feet high, but just 40 feet across. I mean, there's a boat ramp and everything. It's not, because if that were the case, then that would mean that the house itself is much higher than 40 fucking feet above the water, and it's not. It's about an 8 foot elevation to the foundation of the very first, the not basement, but the first. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, but the pavilion is only about 2 or 3 feet. Yeah, about 3 or 4 feet above sea level. So its elevation is roughly about 3 or 4 feet, and there is an entire pier running from it, like a good ways too, like a lot. Like, I mean, it's a good long little pier, given the structure. But yes, it's a standard size like picnic pavilion that you can find in virtually any park. So it's not really like ooh special. Uh, he's saying it's 14 feet tall. I don't believe it actually is. So it's probably, it might be to the very, very tip top roof. But it's a standard size pavilion. If you look up uh, Red Point Lighthouse, um, there's some pictures of it. Um, they have, like, on various real estate websites. Um, they've got like pictures of the pavilion on their Facebook page. They have pictures of the pavilion. It's a standard size, like, little picnic pavilion. It's nothing like woo.
It's represented by this right here is 40 feet off the shore and 14 feet. Is this a 3D representation right here? So is this the
Yeah, see, he gives it kind of a weird, like it. He doesn't voice it very well. He doesn't articulate what he's talking about very well.
shoreline right here? Right? Why can't you see the beach in front of this? Why can't you see the beach in front of this?
Because you aren't at the appropriate angle. You're close to the water, probably at your little sign. Maybe a little bit. Maybe you've gotten the camera where it's only about 4 foot tall. That's how. And anytime that if you're gonna show some photos of the entirety of the pavilion, that is simply because you raised your elevation. That's it.
Is it underwater? Is this how? I hope he's got good insurance. You cannot see into the distance at certain distances because of the index of refraction that's in the air. Yes, that's true, okay? What you need to understand is that the horizon is always apparent. It's always the result of refraction. Always. Each and every time.
Except for the fact that if you tried to think of it as, like, if you tried to manage this on a flat Earth, right? Um, it doesn't make any sense. In fact, you would never see a refract. I honestly don't think you would see a refracted uh, line almost ever. I guess. I don't know. I'd have to do a couple more, like, observations to try to create what things would. I've done where I could more or less kind of make it look like what it would look like if it were flat, uh, given where everything would actually have to sit. But this stuff that he has on screen right here, that's not a flat Earth we're looking at.
And if you go back to the Why Can't Swan G Horizon video, okay, Why Can't Swan G Horizon? I walk through this, guys. I tell you exactly what's going on. And you can look and
Now, mind you, this was originally, I believe, for he ended up using this as a presentation for a debate, and he's referring to shit that people were like, I don't know, what if, I mean, if someone's watching this and is on a different channel, then they're not going to have any references to what he's talking about. Which, when he goes, oh, it's just here's more explanation for my not really any of. By the way, have y'all figured it out yet? Like, honestly, if you just listen to his words and forget my commentary, has he really told you anything other than saying refraction exists, and he's in the odd way that he's depicting his own concept as being odd, three-dimensional and two-dimensional simultaneously. It's just weird. He hasn't really said anything. He's just said this happens. Jesus.
see what's happening, okay? This this mirage at this angle and at this degree and at this distance is vanishing physical distance and height. So
See? He's treating it as if it's a shadow and a layer cake and a piece of and a sheet cake at the same time. It's a coat of paint. It's it's these are things that make no sense.
this right here is the vanishing line of this image.
By the way, not what vanishing line means, you fucking moron.
But this is not squashed all in here. It's still physically right here. It's still physically there. Just like it's a 10, just like this.
See? This is what I'm talking about. He can't fathom that if his dumbass is at, say, at the 4 foot or 5 foot fucking mark by that stupid fucking sign, what he is describing is literally above his fucking head. Remember, 14-foot pavilion that is at least an additional 3 feet, or at most, probably 4 feet, at minimum, 3 feet above the water. 3 foot elevation plus a 14 fucking foot tall pavilion. Do some fucking math. It's at least 17 feet. His camera is anywhere between 4 to 5.5 feet. Anywhere between, yeah. Does anyone, do you need to do some math? Effectively, he would have to be looking up to see this shit. Only he's looking down. He doesn't fucking get it either. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get that his observations. He is literally, if it's, because you can give a dimension. He gives how high the thing is, and I already know from experience how like he says how tall it is, but I know from experience how high it is above the water. So you do the math. 17 feet, roughly. At minimum at least 17 feet. So 17 to 18 feet. His observer height is between 4 and 5.5 feet. Effectively, it's physically impossible for him to see what it is he's seeing. I've asked him, where does the ether band start? Where does it start? Where does it really start? And he's agreed. Well, he's haphazardly agreed. He changes it occasionally. That he's in the ether band. When he's taking these photos, the ether band, he's in the ether band. He's in it, which is weird because that's that three. This would be realistically, it would be the way he depicts it. That three dimensionality, he would have to be in it, and if he's in it, then that causes other issues, and he wouldn't be seeing what he's seeing. He would be seeing something completely different. But yes, he's still giving it dimensionality, and at some point, he gives it this wall characteristic that is roughly where the ripples of the water are, where you can actually distinguish the water from the mirage. And it's somewhere round about there, the damn thing stands up, and then it hides things from him in a weird 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional way.
This was a 14-foot wall. It's not smashed physically.
See? Wait, he said it.
All in here, it's still physically right here. It's still physically there, just like it's a 10. Just like this was a 14-foot wall. It's not smashed physically, squished physically here.
Told you.
This is apparent. This is a mirage.
This is precisely why I say that he can't think 3-dimensionally. Because he isn't. He also doesn't understand spatial reasoning. He lacks spatial reasoning and cannot think 3-dimensionally. He is looking at these images, which are, of course, 2-dimensional, but they are depictions of a 3-dimensional realm. Three-dimensional world, 3-dimensional reality, but they can only depict it 2-dimensionally because it's a fucking picture. Right? And he can't make that connection that where his mouse is at, where the ripples of the water, is physically closer to him. You know, it's that weird thing that because it's close to the bottom of the screen, and then the other stuff is higher up on the screen, that there's a lateral movement instead of one that with depth. So he removes the depth. That's probably a better way of putting it. He removes the depth to this stuff, right?
I don't even know what to say right now.
You're a dumbass.
I had all this planned out. All this planned out. Just whatever. All right.
Editing is a thing, dude.
You cannot mathematically
Which I don't know why he did this. I don't know why he doesn't do it like an actual like kind of production. I guess was to save time for some shit. Anyway, so it kind of present. He just this is where he's comfortable. Well, he was gonna say something.
Planned out. All this planned out. Just whatever.
All right. Fucker.
You cannot mathematically quantify this. You can't do it. Don't try. Why would you?
Okay, this is where the I can't. It can't be done. It can't be done. This is more or less an argument from incredulity. He's saying it can't be done because he can't do it. Okay, and that's the whole thing. This entire video was supposed to kind of give us more actual information. Instead, he made a shit ton of conflicting terms. He gives this weird. He removes depth. He adds depth. He sits there and gives it thickness. He removes the thickness. You know, he gives all of the. He removes the dimensionality. Gives it dimensionality. Removes it again. Isn't demonstrating his inability to think 3-dimensionally, or that he has a strong grasp of spatial reasoning. That's it. So yeah, no one's going to be able to calculate what you're claiming other than the fact that you've given information, albeit conflicting. You just said it was like a 14-foot high wall. You've said it numerous times. Well, two other occasions where if you wiped away the mirage, you'd see straight ahead, right? It would just it would be straight ahead. You would see the water meet the shore, see the water. Yeah, it's almost every instance. It's with something behind it that you would see the water to the shoreline and so on and so forth, right? That if you just wiped away, just got rid of it, you know, if you took down the wall, you know, insert Cold War joke in there somewhere. Um, tear down that wall. Anyway, I'm a sucker of too for this shit, so it's funny. Anyway, but essentially, yeah, uh, he gives all these. So he's able to half-ass quantify it. He's able to say, okay, on even if he doesn't say, okay, well, on this particular day under these conditions, this is going to happen. I can tell you when the conditions will what time of the day in which most of his these conditions for him happen. Early morning early morning or late evening, right? So just after dawn and just before dark. So dawn and dusk, or just after dawn. So early morning to late evening, he's getting these effects. You know, I'd say morning is it's before solar noon and after solar noon. Usually at least a 2 to 4 hour like time period between those 2 points, right? So anywhere between dawn, which I know he's done observations during that time period. So given whatever time of the year it is, all the way up until about 10, he can probably push the observations all the way nearly to noon, depending on what time of year it is. So well, that's not really true because solar noon is roughly the same time period. It doesn't really matter necessarily what time of the year it is, just a matter of position. So it's a grace period, probably 2 hours before and 2 hours all the way up from dawn till about 2 hours before solar noon, and then from 2 hours after solar noon till dark. He's probably is when he's taking these observations. This one in particular one that he shows right here was probably about 9 ish in the morning, between 9 and 10 in the morning, easy. I mean, it could very well be like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd say okay, so between 8 and 10, I'd give is kind of a grace period. But yeah, it's still funny.
Try. Just tell me what you see. You don't know what the hell's going on out here. You don't.
Funny, but a lot of people do. I do. I can tell you exactly what's going on. The water is the temperature of the water is warmer than the temperature of the air. It creates a very small, tiny little layer of radiated that's the thermal radiation coming off of the water warms up a small, thin layer of air. Right, that thin layer of air uh, is also less is becomes less dense. That less dense air is rising and cools off. You get that little the turbulence going on from that, right? When you have hot air rising and it's cooling off and it's falling, other air is falling, so on and so forth. But that concentrated area, right, where it's constant thermal differential, right? That constant pressure change, right? It's right there. It's really, really thin. Okay, like I said, between most maybe 3 inches at most. I found that the reality is it's roughly between a half inch. So it was less than a half inch all the way up to about. Mm, I think I had it. It was pretty good. Pretty good given the conditions I was in, but it depends on the actual temperature differential, which of course is a density differential, which is a pressure differential, and it's not, but it's not 14 fucking feet tall. Okay, dude, that's where your pigeon-sized brain is not catching. It's a very thin layer. Oh, and of course, his angle in relation to it. Closer to the water, more mirroring. Just like if you're on a road, you get closer to the road, you get a much wider swath of that mirroring. You stand up, it pushes that mirroring back, or forward, should I say? It pushes the mirroring forward, and in some cases, areas that you would think should still be mirrored or not, because you're not at the appropriate angle of incidence. No, what's it called? Crap on toast. I mentioned it earlier. You just critical angle. Haha. You're not at that critical angle anymore. You changed it. You're now above it. You can peer through it. Uh, if you had two cameras, one above, one below, and you halved it, you could show roughly where that occurs. You can pinpoint where it happens, the actual angle necessary to do it. Right? The change in angles that shows this difference. If you could show that, get yourself a 10-foot pole and a camera that can go up and down, right? They can track the same point. I don't know, kind of like maybe sort of like a drone, maybe, where you can go straight up, straight down, but track a certain position, right, in the distance. So you fix on an object and then you just let it happen. You'll see it. You'll see how that works. It's not complicated. I don't know why it is you can't conceptualize it in your brain. You can't think in a third person scale. You can't think outside of your own two eyes. You can't close your eyes and you can't put these things together. This is where spatial reasoning comes into play. And also that whole three-dimensional thing. You can't place all of these concepts in your head, what you see visually, and then the relationships with objects, distances, and sizes, and things like that, and then put them into a three-dimensional format in your own mind. This is why you fail. And this is how you were able to create this bullshit, is because it's purely a fabrication of your inabilities. It's a product of, yeah, it's a product of your failings. Your intellectual capacity is in question. You just, it's one of those things, in garbage, out garbage, right? Garbage in, garbage out. This is all that's happening, dude. You're unable to functionally process this information and return that information as being as in the form of understanding these relationships. This is why I ask flat earthers to draw shit out for me. Like literally actually draw shit out. Give me something, maybe it's something to scale. You don't have to recreate the effect, but you at least have to show me something. You have to show me in where you can take the idea, right? And you don't have to actually like fucking. You don't have to do it on a computer. Do it on fucking on. I don't care. Legos, sculpt it out. Play with some clay, a fish tank, something, right? Give physicality to this stuff, not just words, and not just ad hoc rationalizations, right? That doesn't do any good, okay? You got to give more than just, I think this is what it is, therefore that's what it is. Because if you're unable to actually process the information, then yeah, it just makes it funny for me. This is why I laugh at you, Travis. This is why I ask you certain questions, because you say so many things and so many of them are conflicting statements, conflicting ideas, conflicting representations of your own position, your whole channel's dedicated to this shit. And this ether band is just your sad, very sad attempt to explain things disappearing from the bottom up. Let's not forget that.
Oh, this light is bending down and it's bending up. This
Oh, sorry. Things disappearing from the bottom up on a flat Earth.
light is bending up, but no. Just stop, guys. Just stop.
Oh, and also it's an appeal to stupidity. That's an actual thing. To disregard, uh, like the accumulated knowledge that we have for, for like light and refraction and the effects of the atmosphere on light. The entire. He talks about he even uses terms like refractive index and things like that. So he's heard of these terms, and he should at the very least know what they are. Uh, so obviously, if we can quantify certain things, then yeah, what you've already you've given information, right? Measurements, supposed measurements of these things. You said it's a wall. I'm repeating myself. I gotta finish this.
There is no curvature. The horizon is always the result of refraction. Always. Obstruction is always refraction. Whether it's mirage or not. If there's no mirage, it's refraction nonetheless. That might not be classified as a mirage. I just actually
I like that. If there's no mirage, then there's something else that's also like a mirage, but not a mirage. He has this weird thing where it's like not all refraction is mirages, which is true, but all mirages are refraction. It's a weird. I mean, he's like, oh, it's this unclassified thing. So, but he's the only person in the world ever to recognize its existence, and he just happens to be a flat earther, and he just happens to be trying to prove it's the Earth's flat, and this is evidence that it's not a curve. It's not a curve. There's no curvature. Basically, the whole nihilism thing. He's saying what it's not, and then he's adding what it is. And the is in relation to the Earth, of course, supposed to being flat, and it's his explanation for something that theoretically shouldn't be explainable.
got a hold of a documentation, the American Practical Navigator. Okay, started looking through that. There is a section in there on mirages, and the section actually says that a mirage is any refracted distortion, not just an inverted image, which is what I've been saying. Okay, so
I'm gonna hazard a guess, and if I looked up the actual book, I'll have to listen to it again, and went to miraging or mirages or whatever, right? I'm gonna bet dollars to donuts. It's just he's reimagining what the text actually says. So I'm actually gonna listen to what he called it. And I'm gonna go look it up, and I'm gonna look up mirages and see what it says, because something tells me it probably doesn't say what Travis is saying it says.
You gotta wait for that. I gotta go to work.
Okay, and we're done. There, stop. Whatever, sure. Okay. That was it. I don't know how long this video will end up being, and I'm definitely gonna upload it if the audio came out nice, or at least half-ass decent. I don't have anything plugged in, so it's just the mic from the phone. But I really will bet dollars to donuts that the book that he's referring to, uh, it probably doesn't say what he says. We've already covered how he really doesn't have the ability to think three dimensions, and he also can't process spatial. He doesn't have spatial reasoning. Okay. He's described his effect as being like paint, but also like a wall, and also as if it was like think about like a layer cake or a sheet cake, whatever. Um, However you want to imagine that. Okay. In the end, he gave no actual true explanations. He didn't tell you how it happens. He didn't tell you, just various dimensions. He's just said, you can't say anything about it. You can only look at it, and that's it. He gets to make up his own interpretations of what he's seeing through the filter of his own bias. And that's it. All this in an effort to explain how objects disappear from the bottom up on a flat surface, because according to him, they're not disappearing from the bottom up. It's they're going into this special substance that just hides it, like fog. That's really it. I mean, in all honesty, it's like this fog-like air stuff that's not fog because you can't see it, and it just sort of goes into it. That's it. It's this magic shit. Anyway, uh, thanks if you've listened to this whole thing. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Travis, if you watch this, I'm going to and you want to respond, dude. I will roast the ever living fuck out of you because I've described you to a T. All of this to a T, and you're not gonna like it. So I don't really care. It's funny. I could do more to explain your shit than you can. I don't pretend to not know at least the mechanics of the shit you're spewing. You know? Sorry. The mechanics of the effects that you're trying to reinterpret. That's probably a better way of putting it. Why? Because I did the observations. And I figured it out. Anyway. Thanks for listening, guys. I've been the Bearded Devil. Y'all have been awesome. Later.